In every negotiation, there are hidden forces at play, forces that really dictate the outcome. Today, we're going to map one of the most powerful. It's an invisible prison that traps negotiators, forcing them to destroy value, even when a much better deal is sitting right there in front of them.
It's a question that every single one of us has faced. You know the feeling. You're in that room, it's a negotiation where both sides clearly stand to gain, and yet, it just collapses. It feels completely irrational. But what if it's not? What if there's a cold, hard logic driving this kind of self-sabotage?
So, here's how we're going to dissect that logic. First, we'll look at the trap itself. Then we'll identify its universal pattern. We're going to break down the fear calculus that powers it, tally up the real price of mistrust, and then we'll reveal how the best negotiators completely change the game. And finally, we'll give you a set of questions, a kind of X-ray for your own deals.
Okay, let's start with the signal. The core insight today is pretty counterintuitive. The single biggest threat to your deal isn't malice, it's not the other side being evil, it's a flawed perception of what is rational.
You know, the common view is that deals fail because of bad faith or maybe just bad tactics, but the signal we're tracking points to something much deeper. Often, the game itself is rigged to punish trust before you can even try it. The incentives aren't aligned for mutual gain, they're aligned for mutual suspicion.
Now, this trap is most powerful in what game theorists call a one-shot negotiation. Just think of it like a deal happening in a total vacuum. When your future reputation isn't on the line, the logic of betraying the other person can seem, well, overwhelmingly compelling. It feels like the smart, self-interested move.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. Once you learn to spot this pattern, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. It's like a universal code that's running in the background of deals across wildly different fields. Take venture capital, for example. This quote really gets to the core fear. They'll see it as weakness. See, this isn't about greed, it's a defensive calculation. The VC thinks that offering fair terms won't be seen as goodwill, but as a lack of leverage. So what do? They open with a hard line, even if it poisons the relationship from the start. The fear of being the sucker is what dictates the opening move. And believe it or not, this exact same logic scales right up to geopolitics. Nations get locked into these massive arms races, not necessarily because they want a conflict, but because the risk of being the only one to disarm is just catastrophic. The logic is, trusting the other side is basically strategic suicide. And then the pattern shows up again in everyday business. A sales leader holds back their best offer because they assume the buyer is just going to use it as leverage with a competitor. So both sides end up doing this dance around the best possible price, and all that happens is value and trust just leak out with every single step. Why? Because the structure of the game punishes transparency.
This brings us right to the core mechanics of the trap. We call it the fear calculus, and it all boils down to a simple and pretty brutal calculation.
Okay, this right here. This is the invisible math that's governing the negotiation. Look closely. If you both cooperate, you get mutual gain. That's a good outcome. But the real fear isn't about a small win. The absolute terror is in that box labeled sucker's payoff. That's where you cooperate and they defect. And to avoid that one single outcome, no matter what, defection starts to look like the safest bet, regardless of what the other side does.
So what does this fear lead to? It leads directly to something called preemptive defection. And it's so important to understand this. Most defections in a deal are not acts of aggression. They are defensive responses. You betray the other party simply because you've calculated that they are just about to betray you.
So what's the real-world consequence of being trapped inside this game? Well, the price is staggering, and it's paid in lost value and broken opportunities.
When both sides preemptively defect, value isn't just divided up, it gets actively destroyed. Critical information that could have made the pie bigger for everyone gets withheld. The very possibility of trust is never even put to the test. And the result? Fragile, suboptimal deals become the standard, while truly great partnerships just die before they ever get started.
So you see, the failure isn't in the negotiator's skill. The failure lies in their blindness. They're blind to the game they are trapped in.
But here's the thing. Elite negotiators, they don't play by these rules. They see the prison, and they simply refuse to enter it. They get their edge not by playing the game better, but by fundamentally changing the game itself.
How do they do it? By refusing to play a one-shot game. They zoom out and they play the long game. They understand that a small cooperative move in deal number one, even if it costs them a little, is an investment.
When that's reciprocated in Deal 2, trust starts to build. By Deal 3, that trust unlocks access to information and terms that defensive negotiators will never ever see. And in the future, their reputation becomes their most powerful asset.
This is the core insight of a master negotiator. They operate on a simple principle. Today's behavior prices tomorrow's options. Every action, every concession, every single act of good faith isn't just about the deal in front of you. It's setting the price for every future opportunity with that person, and frankly, with everyone in their network.
So, we've mapped the prison. Now, let's turn this entire framework into a diagnostic tool for your own negotiations. Think of these next questions as an X-ray to help you see the game that you're truly in.
First, you have to ask yourself, is the short-term gain from a single defection really worth the long-term cost to your reputation? Are you pricing tomorrow's options correctly?
Second, are you treating trust like some soft skill, or are you treating it as what it really is, a form of strategic leverage? Just think about how much value you might be leaving on the table simply because you can't build it.
And finally, probably the most important question of all, what is your default setting? Are you biased toward that preemptive defection? Are you letting the fear of the sucker's payoff prevent you from ever achieving that mutual gain? Because the answer to that question, it doesn't just reveal the game you're playing, it might just reveal the prison you've built for yourself.